Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We are reading from the 10th canto, chapter 33, text 38. Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevamudita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakriyan Bhagavat Priya Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevanumodita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakrihan 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 Bhagavat Priya. Someone else? Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevanumodita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakrihan Bhagavat Priya Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevanumodita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakrihan Bhagavat Priya. Mataji's explanation. Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevanumodita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakrihan Bhagavat Priya. Brahmagatra upavritte Vasudevanumodita Anicchantyo yayogopya Svakrihan Bhagavat Priya. Brahmagatre, the night time of Brahma upavritte being completed. Vasudeva by Lord Krishna Anumodita advised Anicchantya unwilling, Yayu went, Gopya, the gopis, Svagrihan, to their homes, Bhagavan, of the Supreme Lord. We are the dear consort. Translation and purport by the disciple of H.D. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After an entire night of Brahma is passed, Lord Krishna advised the gopis to return to their homes, although they did not wish to do so. The Lord's beloved consort complied with his command. So please repeat, after an entire night of Brahma has passed, Lord Krishna advised the gopis to return to their home, although they did not wish to do so. The Lord's beloved consort complied with his command. In the Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Lord Krishna explains, by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. As such, also is the duration of his night. Thus, 1,000 ages entered within a single 12-hour night when Lord Krishna performed his Radha dance. Srila Vishwanath Bhakti compares this inconceivable impression of time to the fact that many universes fit neatly within the 40-mile range of the earthly Vrindavan. Or one may consider that Mother Yasoda could not encircle the small abdomen of child Krishna with numerous rows, and that at another time he manifested many universes within his mouth. The transcendence of spiritual reality above and beyond mundane physics is concisely explained in Srila Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Evam Prabhu Priyanam Cha Dhamnasam Samayasya Cha Avisintya Prabhavat Avisintya Prabhavat Atra Kinchinna Dogatam. Nothing is impossible for the Lord. His dear devotees, his transcendental abode, for the time of his pastimes, for all these entities are inconceivably powerful. Srila Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur further explains that the word Vasudeva Namoditaha indicates that Lord Krishna advised the gopis to assure the success of these pastimes. You and I should keep them secret. The word Vasudeva, a name of Krishna, also indicates Lord Krishna's plenary expansion, who acts as the presiding deity of consciousness. When the word Vasudeva is understood in this context, the word Vasudeva Nimodita indicates that the presiding deity of consciousness, Radhadesh, manifested embarrassment and fear of their elders within the gopis' hearts, and therefore it was only with great reluctance that the young girls returned home. I also purport Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur, Shiva Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami, and later give you the gist of this purport. Verse again. Brahmarata Pavrite Vasudeva Namodita Anichanto Chaukopya Sparkinam Bhagavat Priyam. After an entire night of Brahma has passed, Lord Krishna advised the gopis to return to their homes. Although they did not wish to do so, the Lord's beloved consorts complied with his command. Chakshurunmitangena tasmai Shri Gurave Chitchaitanyamanovistam Staktam Yena Bhutale Svamupadamyam Dadati Svamupadam Vandeham Shigo Shri Yuda Padakamanam Shridam Vaishnavam Sam Shri Upam Saritatam Sakam Ragnatam Kitam Tam Sajivam Sapaitam Sakritam Vajanam Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Divam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagalita Shiksha Kamvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhavya Tate Gopesha Gopa Kanta Ram Kantanam Tapta Kanchana Kaunti Radhe Vangapanishti Vishabhana Sutadevi Anamama Pankha Kalta Visha Vipasan Vavisha Patana Pavadavya Vaishnavya Nama Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavan Nityananda Yam Vedadata Shiva Sandhu Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Krishna Vishnu Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharani Nirvishesha Sringavadi Bhaskacharya Desantani Srila Prabhupada Ki I'm completely unqualified to say anything on this person. That this is the end of the rasa dance, the most esoteric point of the Bhagavatam. I facilitated now nearly the entire Bhakti Vedanta course for the VHC and Mayapur Institute, and I'd also go to these counters, but it was a pure embarrassment. Anyway, I tried to say something, but maybe there are more qualified persons in this audience, scholars, you know. Otherwise, they can speak instead of me. Anyway, I tried to say a few words. So the rasa dance here went on for 1 day of Brahma. 1 day of Brahma is called a millennium, 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. Put together for, I think, 4,350,000 years, multiplied by 1,000. That's a long time. That
4,320,000,000.
yeah. Anyway, that so that means time on the spiritual platform is different. Time, Krishna says, Kalasmi, time, I'm time. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I'm the destroyer of everyone and everything in this world. That so that's the influence of time in this material world. But time has no function in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, it becomes the servant of Krishna who facilitates his pastimes. So, in the purport of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives a few other examples of this inconceivable potencies, spiritual potencies of the Lord. So there are many universes fit within the 40-mile range of the earthly Vrindavan that Mother Yasoda could encircle. She could not encircle the abdomen of the child Krishna with numerous ropes. That it expanded always. When she looked in his mouth to look for the, she found many universes within his mouth. That so the conclusion of Rupa Goswami, who also comments on this verse, he says, yes, the spiritual reality is above the mundane physics. That in this world everything is on physical laws. That but they are not applicable in the spiritual world, on the spiritual platform. Therefore, we can say you have three levels of logic. You have the logic of this world, and what's against this, we mostly say it's illogical. But Krishna is not illogical, he's translogical. He's above that. So someone asked my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj, can Krishna make Govardhan Hill so heavy that he cannot lift it? And he said, yes, he can make Govardhan so heavy that he cannot lift it, still he will lift it. So that's inconceivable power of the Supreme Lord. That we try to understand the transcendental subject matters by our brains, but our brain is material. With something material, you cannot understand something spiritual. Therefore, it's explained in Bhagavad Gita that transcendental knowledge is given by Krishna, the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam, from within the heart. It gives, Krishna reveals the transcendental reality. It's not something we can attain upon on our own endeavor. That we listen to transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master, but then by serving the spiritual master, by submitting his attitude, by inquiring, it's revealed to the heart. Shim Vatas Bhagatan Punya Sharma Kirtna Vityanta Toyabhatani Vitanot Switchitam. Tesam Satta Yutanam Vachtam Pitapokam Dodami Budyo Tam Yenama Payantati. Tesam Epanakam Putam Amma Yama Chamtamu Natsa Jana Atma Bhava Sto Jana Dibena Vashmata. These are, is what the scripture says. Krishna reveals it through the heart. That, and then we can start to understand the transcendental position. We are used to see everything to the eyes of this world and to this body, with his that. And most people think, what I don't see, what I don't perceive, I don't believe. That so Then Krishna asked the gopis, you go home now. That they didn't want to go home, but they did go home. Why is that? Why did the gopis go home after experiencing the bliss of the rasa dance? This is analyzed by another acharya. So we heard already from Srila Vishnu Bhakti Thakur, which is the midway acharya, then from Rupa Goswami, and now Jiva Goswami, the disciple of Rupa Goswami. He said yes. And that's interesting because these purports are going very deep. That I can read them, but probably it will be difficult to understand. I had to read them 10 times to get the point. That, but our acharyas analyze the word Vasudev. Vasudev, yeah, we say yes, has different meanings. Vasudev means, for example, in Sanskrit, Krishna is the son of Vasudev. Vasudev means also, it's Krishna is all-pervading. Vasudev, in this context here, is the presiding deity of consciousness. There are 4 deities with different functions: Vasudev, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudev is the presiding deity of consciousness. And what was in their consciousness, Jiva Goswami said? It's prema. And so, by this, inspired by this prema, this love for Krishna, prema permitted them, he said, to go home. Interesting, permitted them to go home. And that Vasudeva has also another meaning. That and that's interesting, because Vasu, Nanda Maharaj, and that's a little complicated, but and also inconceivable, very inconceivable how that is possible. But Vasudeva and Maria Soda, they come from the spiritual world. But they have also demigod expansions that have merged with them. That's difficult to understand how that is possible. If you're intelligent, you can try. So there's a demigod part in Nanda Maharaj, and the demigod part was in his previous life Drona, and he was a Vasu, one of the Vasus, one of the great sages. That Bhishmadev was also the head of the Vasus in his previous life. That's all in the Mahabharata. That Vasu. So Jiva Goswami said, I think, he says that Vasudev can also mean Nanda Maharaj. To please Nanda Maharaj, they went home. That's interesting. But Jiva Goswami said it's by prema. Prema, the presiding deity of the gopis, and by prema they went home. But then Sanatana Goswami said, yes, they went home, because if they did not go home, Krishna could not continue to tend the cows to satisfy his father. And Krishna would not be happy. And the gopis want Krishna to be happy. You understand? Therefore they went home. Because otherwise he could not tend the cows, and Nanda Maharaj would not be happy. And then their happiness from the rasa dance would have been in perfect Sanatana. So the gopis, they want to please Krishna, and that's their only goal. They do not want any happiness for themselves. And something which is also inconceivable, of course. Everyone wants something in this world. But they wanted only to give to Krishna. That's when Nanda Narada Muni said to a Brahmin, Krishna is a headache, and he can only be cured by putting the dust that has touched the lotus feet of his devotees on his head. And so Narada Muni said, so please give me the dust of your lotus feet. And the Brahmin said, no, the feet are the dirtiest part of the body, and that putting on the head of the Supreme Personality of God, I'm going to hell. I cannot do it. But then Narada Muni went to the gopis and asked them the same question. Krishna has a headache. He needs the dust of your lotus feet. And the gopis said, take it immediately. And Narada Muni said, I am not afraid of going to hell. And the gopi said, if Krishna's headache is cured by that and he's happy, it's our pleasure to go to hell. So the goal is to please the Supreme Lord. And that starts in the first 9 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, like for example, why did Kardama Muni leave? That he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Kapiladev appeared as his son. Why did he leave? The goal is to get the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he gets it and he leaves. Why? Because he was following the Vedic instructions to take the renounced order. And these are Krishna's instructions. And this pleases Krishna. So he left, but he didn't leave the Supreme Personality of Godhead in reality, because he was constantly living in a relationship with Krishna in his heart. He was always connected. I remember Kadam Kanam speaking to the sannyas candidates about sannyas life. And I said, sannyas means you live constantly in a relationship with Krishna. It's a high level that hope to attain that sometimes. But if we look, we are at the end of this pastime here. If we look at this pastime, what did we learn? At the Rasa dance, Krishna expanded himself in numerous forms, and yet each gopi thought Krishna is standing next to me alone. So that's, if we develop our relationship with Krishna, we get a personal relationship with Krishna. And we must not stand in a row to see Krishna still 1 million before us. No, he reciprocates personally. Like he had 16,108 queens in Dwarka. And when he came home, he expanded them in 16,108 forms, and when in each palace, personally. But for the gopis, Krishna is the only actual enjoyer and object of enjoyment. And these pastimes cannot be understood by ordinary persons. And that appears from conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. If someone with an impure heart tries to enjoy such pastimes, he will suffer the same fate as someone other than Lord Rudra would suffer if he attempts to drink an ocean of poison. So if we think we are going to read this for our enjoyment, that Sukadeva Goswami said it's like Lord Shiva drinking the halala poison from the churning of the milk ocean. That will not go well. So even if one thinks of, oh, what would it be if I would imitate Krishna, if I would be Krishna in the Rasa dance with so many gopis, you will suffer misfortune. You will suffer. But we will see in the verse tomorrow. It said, by hearing these pastimes with the correct attitude, one will have the desires for material sense gratification destroyed. You will become purified. Purified at the root. And one will develop its natural propensity for serving the Supreme Lord. We will see that the commentary of Shiva Goswami at the end on this last verse. It says that one can appreciate these pastimes only if one chants the holy names without offenses. Very difficult. Very difficult to overcome these 10 offenses. That if you overcome them, you chant with attention. You can think of Krishna always, because that's the overall offense. So it's like, I remember, it's in the nectar of instruction, the last verse, in the commentary. If one takes bath in Radhakund at the time of his appearance, one gets prema. I did it 2 times exactly at the time of the appearance, but I didn't get prema. You also. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj said, yes, if one is on the level of bhava and does that, he gets prema. So you have to be on the level of bhava. So it's like, yes, the point is, we must hear these pastimes with the appropriate attitude. And what this appropriate attitude is, the attitude of performing the pure devotional service. One must not be a pure devotee, but one must be the attitude of a pure devotee. And what's the attitude of a pure devotee? Is Anyabhilasa Simyam, Kyanakamat, Apa Anavitam, Anakalena Krishna Shilnam Bhakti-Uttama. That's the definition of pure devotional service. Without desire for mukti or bhakti or mukti, these are vicious. Rupa Goswami says, vicious. wanting something in return, something material, of wanting liberation, and so on. No, just to please Krishna favorably. That's the inner attitude. There are a few more conditions. Savaikum samparodamo yatrubhaktirodoxia ahaikapatiyata yatmasvibhashidati. What gives this pleasure to the soul is if we perform this parodharma, the highest devotional service, without interruption, and only to please Krishna, unmotivated. If we do that, and we have that attitude, and we hear this pastime, then we will become purified. So there's a difference between acting as a pure devotee and being a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada explains, as when someone asked Srila Prabhupada, how many the pure devotees are there in ISKCON? And someone asked, and he asked his secretary, please tell me how many devotees do we have today in ISKCON? So he was considering all the devotees as pure devotees. Does not mean their heart was pure, but they were acting as pure devotees. They were only engaged in Srila Prabhupada's mission. They had no other goal in life. And that was like that in the 70s. You joined this movement, you gave away all your possessions, and you had to live in the temple and go out on book distribution or Harinam the whole day. And that was the program, completely surrendered. If you were living outside, you were in Maya, not a devotee. So that was the power of this pure devotional service. And if we look at the history of ISKCON, that period is known as a Hare Krishna explosion. We spread all over the world and we distribute so many books. Of course, after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, it became more difficult. But if we have that inner intention just to please Krishna like devotees, then we will become purified. Because in the 70s, you have that quote here on the verse tomorrow, and that's also mentioned in Krishna book. Because in the beginning, we didn't have this 10th canto, we have the Krishna book. And the devotees took that serious. Let us come together and discuss only the pastimes of the gopis. That there were some who came with peacock feathers and they had meetings discussing the gopis. And when Srila Prabhupada heard this, he became very angry. He said, stop this immediately. That was, they called it the Gopi Bhava Club. That imitating and trying to hear the gopis, but they were not that level. And Srila Prabhupada said they will not become purified, they will become putrefied. Happy word. That so we have to understand this correctly and understand Krishna consciousness is a process with stages. 11 stages from Shraddha to Prema. That if we understand how the process works, then we understand what purity in heart means. And imitating this is very dangerous. So that's what I could say on this verse. Comments? Yes? Shada, Sadhu Sangha, Vachana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, Prema. 9 stages. That's, yeah, that's, yeah. Shada is you have faith, you hear from a Swami. Sadhu Sangha, you meet the devotees, you learn about them, about devotional service. You accept the spiritual master, you get initiation, you get guidance from the Sadhu Sangha, and the spiritual master tells you to engage in devotional service. Bhajana Kriya. And that's that. You start to practice. The practice is mechanistic in the beginning. That it's like a mother and a child. The child imitates the cooking of the mother on a cooking stove, a toy's kitchen. And that's what we do in the beginning. We are imitating and trying, because bhakti means devotional service. The service is already there, but the devotion is not yet there. The consciousness is not yet with Krishna. So therefore it's not yet devotional service. But we please the spiritual master by following his instructions, and Krishna accepted us love. And therefore we start to become purified. And in the beginning, Vajna Kriya is Anishtita and Nishtita. Anishtita is unstudied devotional service. And that has 6 problems we have to go through. Sometimes, we make vows and we cannot follow them. And the mind goes from one thing to another. We don't know what to do. Maybe what the mind say one day I will go to Vrindavan, give up this world and chant 64 rounds. And the next day the mind says, no, or maybe I should start a Krishna conscious family, and going from one thing to another. And then there's the fight with the senses to control the senses. I'm going to fast on Ekadashi the whole day, and yes, I'm going to fast 23 hours and 5 minutes, and I can eat, and then 5 minutes later, 23 hours and 2 minutes I can eat. The one meditates more on eating than on Krishna, and then ends up eating more than usual. That's a fight in the beginning. You have to get up for Mangalarti, and then the first day you get up at 2 o'clock, chant your rounds. But then the next day it's a little later, and the third day you miss Mangalarti, and it's going up and down. You are not studying. But then when Anishtita Bhakti becomes Nishtita Bhakti, when it becomes study, that is called Anartha Nivritti. Then the heart becomes purified. That takes a while. Then the heart starts to become purified. If you cease offenses in Namaparat, then offenses you have to avoid. Otherwise, the heart will not become purified. It's going slow. Some purification is there, and seva up and out. Offenses, so many. And then one comes to the platform of Nishtha. If you do that for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, hopefully in this lifetime you come to Nishtha. And that's liberation. Pashanat, but Brahmabhuta Pashanatana Sustina Kamisati, Samsavesha Bhutsama Bhaktiam, Bhapatevam. Then you become peaceful, you don't lament, you don't desire anymore. All your desires in this world have gone, you desire only to please Krishna. And then the chanting until that moment are called namavas. But then after liberation, you become not really attracted to Krishna, Ruchi. And then finally, you will realize Krishna in the heart and enter Krishna's pastimes in the heart. Prakritali. Aprakritali. And then after that, you develop bhava. That's the beginning of love for Krishna. And then you get prema. And when you are in prema, you have also to go to 7 stages. Pranaya, mana, pralaya, then raga, anuraga, and bhava, that's a stage of prema, and mabhav. So it's a long process. But so we are not so concerned with this higher. The high after Nishtha, it happens by the mercy of Krishna, and it goes much quicker than the first. But we should come to Nishtha in this life. So about it, we should make it to become a Madhyamadikar. That's Nishtha, liberation. Then we don't take birth again. Or we take birth in Krishna's pastimes to become further purified. But that's the process, and it's important for the devotees to learn this and know where you are in the process. That it's a scientific process, 9 stages. You find that in 2 teachings, especially, but in more, but especially Rupa Goswami. Adar, Tata, Shadusanga, Tata, Pachanakriya, Tanishta, that's all Ta, Monachtanivritti. It's a verse of Rupa Goswami from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he explains that in detail. And the second book is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Madhurya Kalambini. And there he analyzes Rupa Goswami's verse in detail, and you can. I heard even Kadamkana Maharaj has written a book on Madhurya. You can read it; it's very nice, very nice. That help? Something else? Yes.
You said that gopis only want the pleasure of Krishna, and that's why they allow him to go back.
Yeah. I'm not saying that. This is Sanatana Vajrayana. That I'm an answer. Whatever I say, forget it. I try to repeat what they said.
So then, what came to my mind is when Krishna and Balaram went to Mathura, the gopis were trying to stop him. So it seems that do we require some discrimination? How to have what Krishna wants? What makes it?
Yeah, they wanted to stop Krishna because they knew Krishna can only be really happy in Vrindavan. That Acharya has explained. He can only be fully happy in Vrindavan. But he had to come and do his duty. And Yadai Dharmasya Glani Bhakra Bharata Dutamada Dharmasya Tatatmam Shishamyam. He had to do his duty and kill these demons. So yes, that Krishna is only fully happy in Vrindavan. But he did not leave Vrindavan. That it was his Vishnu expansion that went to Mathura. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. In his Aprakat Lila, he stays in Vrindavan. In the Prakrita Lila, he's going. But he's staying in Vrindavan. That helped. Okay. Good.
Sorry if it's not related to sharing what you shared with us today, but in the purport that you mentioned, Srila Vishwanath Thakur, that says how the impression of time is inconceivable. just like the fact that many universes fit neatly within the 40-mile range of Earth even down.
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean? Like, many universes fit into the 40-mile range.
Yeah. So you want me to explain something from the transcendental platform with my mundane words? It's not possible, but what I can say is that Goloka Vrindavan is the biggest planet in the spiritual world. That the Vrindavan here is a replica. That and yes, the capacity of Vrindavan is that it can expand unlimitedly. And it is Vrindavan, the Vrindavan on earth, which is also spiritual, but when we go to Vrindavan, we don't see Vrindavan. You need to go to Vrindavan as Akrura did. And as Uddhav did also. Uddhav showed the way to go to Vrindavan. And then we can see Vrindavan. But Vrindavan is like a lotus, and it opens and it closes. When it closes, yeah, you can quickly go from one point to another. But when it's open, so it can expand unlimitedly. And that's beyond our mundane perception that it can. So we don't need to fear, when I go back to college, will there be still place in Goloka Vrindavan? No, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. And this is under the spiritual laws, Yoga Maya, that and not under the laws of logic of this material world. That, but it's also there in the Hare Krishna mantra. This is inconceivable. How it destroys all our sinful reactions, that's a very powerful thing. But we know that our sinful reactions are there because we suffer. But it's so powerful that it's beyond our mundane logic. Yeah, that's what I can say. Okay, good. Something else? Thank you very much. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Prabhupada ki.